Hey everybody, welcome to Jerry's Live. Unfortunately, we're having some technical issues with Facebook. So those of you that follow us on YouTube, great, you're here. Facebook people that don't know, obviously, are going to get a little bit of a shock because it's not going to be there. We're not sure what's happening. We have tried literally everything. We'll be taking this and uploading it to Facebook after we're all done. So it will probably be there tomorrow once it's uploaded. So Facebook, we apologize. It's going to be there for you. Just hopefully you've been patient. And again, I wish that we were able to have gotten this up and going as it is. But everybody here sends their regrets, and we're just going to go ahead and get started. So the episode today is JL170. We are doing watercolor immediate painting, a landscape paint along. So if you've got watercolors, if you've got virtually any fluid media, grab it, grab some watercolor paper. You don't have to have the exact set we're having, just to enjoy your time and paint along with us. I'm going to very briefly go over what we've got here, and then we will get started. We're using just the Try Me set of Polar Flow watercolor brushes. There's 7 in it. It's got literally everything you would need to start out. Filbert, round, liner, flat, a large and small round, a fan, and an aquarelle. So it gives you even one with a scraper handle. So this is a handy set. Try Me sets are really inexpensive. They're like $14.99. So it's a way to get 7 brushes at an awesome price. And the white synthetics actually perform pretty close to sable. So it's also a very responsive a brush hair on its own. These are my favorite if you use acrylic wash. This is my favorite brand of brush for acrylic wash. It just gives you a lot of options, whether you're painting it more fluid, whether you're painting it thicker, and it rinses out really easily. So that's what we'll be using today with this. We are going to try, we've used the set of the Lucas Aquarelle, the little travel set. It's their just kind of, not their 1862, but they're kind of next step down. But the colors are absolutely vibrant. They just take out, with the non-1862 line, take out all those, the cobalts, the cadmiums, the things like that. So you don't have to worry about that in your colors. This is, we've used a set of 12 in the past. This is a great set of 24, yet for a very inexpensive price. Nice and narrow enough to, I mean, this is not any bigger than, just a tiny bit bigger than my iPhone Pro. So, I mean, that's fantastic. It can slip in your pocket, it can go in your purse or bag. Great little set. Pop cup gives you a water cup and a brush holder kind of top on the end when you don't have your brush that you're using that minute. Keeps it from rolling off with the little lip there. But you can collapse it when you're done and put it in a bag and not have to deal with, a regular paint bag or cup. So those are made by Faber-Castell. I love those. I don't even know how many I have. It's like a good pencil sharpener, Marie's erasers, right, Katie? We just don't talk about how many there are. So that's a great little item that I would use in a travel set. Fabriano, the Aquarello paper, this is their 25% cotton paper. So the Studio is kind of a better alternative to, especially if you're going to be traveling. It's not expensive cotton paper. If something happens and you lose it, God forbid. But it's got a cotton content, so it's going to give you performance very similar to more of a cotton paper. It can stand up to some repeated washes and a little scrubbing without damaging the paper. Super pocket friendly price as well. And who does not like a landscape set? With these, they are bound with these blocks top and bottom. The sides are open, so it's way easier to get it off the paper pad when you're all done, but it holds it down nice and tight, more like a regular glued block does. So that's what we're going to be using for our paper today. And then to just round out the set, these bags are just the one thing I can't break, and They're waterproof, so if you have something that somehow spills in the inside, unless it's turned upside down for a prolonged period of time where it's going to slowly drip out of the kind of the fabric on the zipper, you are good to go. So all those items fit in this handy dandy bag for traveling. So you can take it anywhere. Before we get started, we talked about Art of the Carolinas last week. Art of the Carolinas is this awesome trade show, huge event, meeting place, gathering of the artistic minds where you can take workshops and just have, social time, catch up on some new skills and talents, trades. It's just a wonderful thing that we look forward to every year. And unfortunately this year, due to COVID, it had to be canceled. However, we discussed last week, if you were with us, that we're going to be doing a virtual AOC, which is a little sad if you're used to coming and doing it with us, because it's just not the same. But for those of you who've not been able to afford to travel, or have things going on in your life where you can't be gone 4 days at a time, this is like the ultimate awesomeness for you, in that you can participate in what an Art of the Carolinas workshop classroom would be, but without having to do the hotel and the airline or the car travel, or taking the time off of work. So all of the classes are going to be 3 hours apiece, 9 to 12, 1 to 4, 5 to 8, and they're going to be doing them Monday through Saturday from November 9th to November 14th. And it's live now. You can actually go to artofthecarolinas.com, look through all of the classes. They're allowing 30 students a class, and you can already sign up now. So it's lots of things, watercolor oils, pick your poison, it's there, but in a convenient, smaller, block of time. So it's not going to affect your daily life like taking time off for a workshop is. So that is up and running. We'll remind you guys again at the end of the show, but it's there, guys. It's ready. So, all right. So we got our little brushes. We've got a kind of a scene that I've picked that's really pretty. It reminds me of Michigan, and I've used this, so it's okay that there's already color in there. I also made a color chart so we can see what these colors look like. So it'll make it a little bit easier. I've got them set up the same as the, in fact, let's move this up here, as the actual set, so you can see the colors while you're working, so it won't be confusing. The set does come with a small brush, but for this larger landscape format, we need to use this other set. So, all right. So if you can give me an above shot, I will see, while I'm getting the water. All right. Do you want me to push it up a little more? Would that be easier to zoom in just a touch? We don't need the bag there, but let's kind of, there we go. Okay. I think that's perfect. Slide this in so you can see the colors. Obviously that's the white, so don't panic. It's there. And I'm going to move that over so they can see my mixing tray.
I'm going to put you in the top left corner too.
Okay. Oh, is that going to, oh, top left. Perfect. I'll slide that over.
Just a tiny bit, I think I can get you a little, oh yeah, there you go. Perfect.
All right.
Pop you up there.
Ta-da! Can't get rid of me. There. All right. So, all right. So with doing this, we're calling this immediate painting. What is that? It's kind of like, think of Impressionism. We are looking for an impression of this image that we've got here. It's got really bright colors. It's got some very vibrant blues to it. It's just kind of a really pretty water scene. Are we worrying about this being pictured? Because I know some of you guys are going to see this and you're just like, and I'm out. Don't do that to yourself. It's okay to just kind of pick and pull and paint some brightness. It doesn't have, if this looks like an abstract after the fact, who stinking cares, okay? we're doing this to become comfortable with this sort of painting. That should be your end goal. It shouldn't be whether this looks exactly like what you think it should look like, okay? Because loosening up and allowing yourself kind of that flexibility and that kind of permission to just try something new is a big plus. Now, the beauty of this set too is since we're doing this in such a short amount of time, let's try not to mix very many colors, okay? I mean, I think it's inevitable. We may want to in some places, but let's try to, as much as we can, and these were all used straight from, you know, the thing, and I'm going to put the box up here so I know what color what is. I can tell you as we're doing this. There's a great legend on the back of the box. All right, so don't draw this in. Don't panic. It's okay. And I'm actually going to fold this because we're doing a landscape format, which you may not be doing at home, but you can just, you know, ignore that portion of your picture, okay? There, that should sit a little bit flatter. There we go. Okay. So what we want to do first is there's this beautiful kind of gold and orange through here. Let's put that in first so we kind of know where that's at in our picture. And right now, since I've limited the height, it looks a little low, like in the middle. I'm going to move it up just a touch on mine because I don't want it to be, we don't want it to be right in the middle. That's not, isn't good for our kind of just overall design. I'm going to use the Indian yellow. It's kind of the orangey yellow there. The other two yellows, this one is very lemony, so it's greener. This one is really bright yellow. We can add that in some places, but let's use that Indian yellow instead. Okay, and I'm seeing the paper kind of an angle, so I apologize. My picture might look a little skewed. And if you accidentally get some of it a little high, we're going to be coming back over it with some darker colors. Just ignore it. It's fine. All right, I'm using the oval wash brush. Okay, it's almost like a big filbert, just to fill in where I want this kind of grass in here to be. Are we working okay on YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you just don't know what's going on Facebook.
That's fine. All right. There's a little bit over there. All right. Now, just since we've got that on there, put just a touch more over here so it's a little brighter. You can see it. That's not going to be our final color there, but this is just for, we can come back in and make this brighter. Now, if you got this set to do this with, or just had this set before, you're going to notice there are some, we've talked a lot about opacity versus transparency. With watercolors, you typically have more transparent colors, but they do have some cadmium orange, cadmium red hues. So those are going to be a little bit more opaque if we use those. And then some of the darker colors, the browns, are going to have, you can see, slightly more opacity. But we'll be able to actually cover some of that with some of these kind of cad colors first. While this is drying, we're going to take a, tell you what, let's get the smaller round.
Quick question.
Yes.
Are you doing wet on wet or wet on dry?
I am trying to do wet and then let it dry before we come back to go over it, because we don't want it to bleed too much right now. So we're going to work in, just like with oil painting, we're working different areas at once, kind of getting some of the stuff down. With this, I'm going to come in here. Now with these like little kind of reeds that we've got here, we're just going to shock the little yellow tops. You don't have to make them all perfect. Kind of decide where this area here, this line, is where there is some still water here, and this is out in the open more where it's catching a breeze, because that's what the water looks like. It's because I grew up sailing. That's how I know to look for the breeze. But that's a little choppier there, so that's why it's kind of flakier, where this is a better reflection of the sky. So what we're going to do is kind of decide where you want that line to be, and we're going to put in some of these little kind of bushes. And instead of pulling up, because that makes your stroke wider at the end if you're going up, we're going to pull back. So I'm just going to put kind of some small areas where I want that stuff to be. Doesn't have to be perfect. And you may want to take some of that color and pull it off into your palette to add a little bit more water, because with the rounds it gets a little bit... Sounds like it's raining now outside. All right, so I'm kind of deciding where I want this to come in. Again, this is not a 2-hair brush. We're not making every single little strand. Do not do that. It's an impression, right? Impression, that's all we want. Yes.
A quick image about the question.
Yeah.
Question about the image.
That's okay.
Is it from Pixabay?
Yes.
Okay. Girls are looking for it. They're asking for it in the group. So girls are looking for it for you.
Okay, I can always put it up after the fact, but it's the search was fall, maybe lake landscapes was, I think, the parameters that I put in. And at the time that I did it, I mean, and I'm sure it's changed. It was.
Oops, you found it. Man's on top of it.
Amanda's a beast. All right, so I'm taking that same brush and I'm pulling some of this area over here, just in. We're gonna come over it more with red. I'm putting the brush on the side and just pushing it along, okay? Because we're getting into where we're gonna have some reflections and things like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. And it does get more red, but we're just kind of trying to decide our space. I'm gonna go back to that bigger brush and do that same thing. Kind of pull that in. Notice here, there's kind of some undulating color. So you don't, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just kind of put it on its side and kind of push it in there. All we're doing is getting the basic layout of this. It doesn't have to be right. And again, like I said, it's an impression. All right, now I may come back and do some of these little grass things here, or I may opt to not do those. I haven't decided yet. What we're gonna do now is we're going to take it and kind of figure out where the sky is gonna be here by putting a very pale, more of that kind of very light lemon yellow along the top of where we want these trees to be, okay? Just so we kind of know where we want them to be, and it's okay to pull it along with this style brush and the brush head kind of shape. You can turn it on its side. I'm not like this. I'm not pushing down. I'm not pulling along like this. I'm just kind of moving it along the side. Over here, I'm going to leave that because those are really dark. Okay. That is just so I can see where my stuff is at. It'll have a little bit of glint then. We can paint into it. That's fine with any of the other colors. And it'll pretty much disappear because it's that color. Now we're going to go and do some of, while that's just drying, because I don't want to accidentally hit it with the blue. That's the one place you don't want to mess with your edge of your skyline and with your blue when they're wet, because especially if you're doing fall colors like this, if you use reds or you use yellows, you're going to get greens and violets in your sky when you add the blue if it runs together. So let that dry for a minute. We're going to come down and into the grass in here. Let's do this oval wash brush for impressions is what I'm going to use probably the most, and then we'll kind of go to the larger round. Now this grass has several different colors. This is way too spring green. Nowhere in that painting do we see that color, right? Maybe a little bit in one of the trees up here. So we can kind of ignore this color because we're trying to use just the colors, right, that we see here. So we're going to get some of this olive green. I'm not going to come up into this part yet. I'm just going to kind of edge in here. I can see this is kind of into the water. So, turning it kind of on its side. Okay, and then it's coming over here. Pick up some of that color. This does not have to be anything in particular right now. We're just gonna kind of block that in. Okay. Now I'm not gonna notice I'm not gonna come over here yet because I think I'm gonna get a brush with some point out because I can see some other stuff going on there. Just I want to get that a little darker. Okay. And then also, see how right along that water's edge, it's a very similar color, isn't it? I mean, it looks kind of black. But what we're going to do is we're going to put green there first, and then I think we'll come back with the indigo over it. So we can use that. Be brave. Try it. Use the big brush. You can turn it on its edge. Don't have a lot of water in it. If you're scared, it's okay to be scared. You can blot on a paper towel. Do it. Edge.
Can you push everything up just a smidge?
Yes.
Or is that too far?
No.
Perfect.
Right.
Just because I'm
It's
going off
just-
the edge there.
No, that's fine. It's just a little harder for me to see the image, but I can look up there if I need to. All right. Okay, you can just dot it if you need to, if you don't like that it's starting to get big. See, that kind of grounds that. It's not just floating anymore. It's kind of giving it a base. And then we'll come back and we'll work with that indigo in a minute. All right, so that's a lot better up there. Let's try this grass here and here real quick. Get your big round, number 8. I mean, whatever round you've got, as long as it's got a decent tip to it and a decent belly. Actually, you know what? We'll do this over here, but I see there's like a lot of white from the clouds, so let's leave that because we can leave some of that white and pull some blue through right before we do those. So again, that green, come back over to there's this little kind of stand. Let's pull that line down. And you've got the shadow under this in the water, so if it kind of extends beyond where you really think that base might be of your plants, that's fine. Because there's going to be that shadow in the water. And then up in here, we have some of that. Again, that's a reflection from those trees. We can add a little bit of that if we want. Okay. All right. So over here, there will be some reflection in the water. We're not going to worry about that right now. Decide kind of how you want this to be. I'm just going to kind of make it, I don't care about the, to me this isn't part of the real beauty of the piece, so I'm going to generalize it and whatever. I'm just going to pull it right down. There are some yellows and stuff in there. I think what I would do with, if I was especially painting on site, I would just take some pictures and come back and add some gouache over it. Just because it's not, if you paint or do it yellow and then paint the green around it, you're going to be sitting for 9 years. And, you know, half the day is going to be past. And the sky's not going to look the same and all that. So just nobody else knows. All right. I'm not going to get much more detail than that because we kind of are going to need to put a little bit of blue in. All right. And I've not added some of these other things. Let's get a little further and we'll see. Go ahead and see these little patches. Add a few. Not like, don't get crazy. You don't have to have all of them. Just add a few so that it's... Are there questions? That sounded like a possible question. It was a question, sigh.
No, that's just me working on the technical difficulties. Still trying to get it working.
Okay. All right. There's a little piece right here.
I do have one I missed from Frida.
Yeah.
Sorry, Frida. Lady Gwen asks, do you always work without tracing or doing a sketch? She always says, I always mess something up if I don't sketch something first.
Okay, you're going to continue to have that problem, missing something by not sketching it if you just don't get used to making yourself do this. The problem is you're tentative, and the more tentative you are, the more mistakes you'll tend to make, and the more you're overthinking what you're doing. That's why we call this an impression. We're doing an immediate painting. We're not worrying about, is it perfect? Because the more you draw like that, and I think that, and I know I had that problem in college, and what I did was left my pencils at home and took only like the technical ink pens and went out and drew. So there was no way to erase anything. So for a little while, there were some really crappy drawings in a whole lot of sketchbooks. But what happened was I got used to going faster. I got used to not letting the mistakes bother me. I got used to learning to block things in with a very light line. And then all of a sudden, it was great. And it's rare that I don't even like to, even if I'm doing like a commission with an ink drawing, I tend to not even ever bother to do a pencil sketch first. So it's that same kind of concept, but you're applying it to painting, okay? So just try it. It's okay. Do it. All right, so we've kind of decided where our tree line's going to be. Let's go ahead and work on the blue, okay? Now, I already had some made, but it's just this cyan primary blue here that's in this that I wanted to use for this. I'm going to start over here because this is obviously darker, and then it's lighter over here, just so I can kind of see how dark this is coming out. Okay. So I know that's going to be, again, using just that big oval brush. I'm going to kind of bring it down into where I want my edges of my trees to go. And again, just the impression of the trees. We're not worried about, no botanist is going to look at this and say that our conifer doesn't look right. Okay, just do the shapes as you can. So I'm just going to kind of give the illusion of some clouds. They don't have to be perfect, and we can kind of paint in and out of them, and we can even pick some back up with a wet brush if it's too hard-edged. See, that got a little harder edge then. So I'm going to take that. And again, we're generalizing shapes. We don't have to have this perfect. See how I've added more water so it's lighter over here, and I'll go back in with a little bit of that ultramarine because I really like that kind of blue violety nature of that. We just want that little, okay, I'm pulling the excess out of the brush and I'm picking up some of that. And I'm going down almost to the tree line and I'm stopping because right now I don't know if that yellow might pick up and I don't want it to go into it to make any green. We can always kind of do a finer line if we want to after the fact. Yeah, I can see I just got a little bit of, kind of like those clouds, and I want a little bit more over here. I'm going to make that kind of a, I'm laying a little extra water down for this because this got kind of dark down here. I'm going to come back in. I'm going to add just a touch of it's cobalt, which is the next darkest. And again, if people see the brush strokes, don't worry about it. It's your impression. And you can see what I was talking about. That's kind of collecting right against that yellow, so it's going to be a little greeny looking. Okay, down here, I'm going to pick up a little bit of the ultramarine. See how that's slightly more purple, a little more violet-y of a blue. And then kind of work it back. This is very hard edge, so I rinse my brush, squeeze the excess water out of it, and I'm just going to kind of pull a little of it up and move it around so it's not quite, glad that wasn't my coffee, not quite as dark. Okay, all right, so there's that. All right, so now we're going to figure where the bottom of our trees are, because now it just looks like this weird floating skyline. So let's take, we're going to take that green, just so we can kind of see where that's at, okay? Now notice that some of this gold goes right into that, so we only want to use it in some places where I'm going over my orange to kind of correct some weirdness I had going on. If there's spaces that you want to leave it for bright trees where it looks like they go right down to the water, go ahead. This is what's called artistic license. You kind of, don't overthink it. And if you're not sure, just go across the whole thing. Just don't worry about it. But we're just making sure that as we work, we kind of have a good
Amy, what size brush is that?
This is a 1/2 inch oval wash. It just looks like a great big like filbert. Okay. See how that kind of pushes that back? That makes this and tilts it so it looks like you're looking away. Okay. So then we can do one of two things. Let's see. That's still not going to be dry enough. No, it's cool. So let's go ahead and work into these trees, being really careful not to come up into our sky. Probably the best thing you could do first is let's get, I've got a 1/4 inch very long flat, like a 1-stroke flat. that's in that kit. And we're going to use that on edge. We're going to go ahead and go in into our orange. Okay, the cadmium orange hue. We've got a really beautiful tree like right here. So let's go ahead and pop some of these in. Now just do the shape. Forget you're painting a tree. You're not painting a tree. You're painting this big bright shape that's over there, okay? Because too many people start wanting to every leaf it. You're seeing this as a mass, okay? Now there's an area over here that's going to be red, but because there's some orange peeking through it, I'm going to go ahead and do it in this orange first. And then we can kind of go back in and blend the red. Are people painting along with this? Is there viewer participation?
That's a good thing. If they are participating and they want to share their work afterwards,
Yes.
they should join our Facebook group.
Yes.
Hashtag it JL170 so we can see it.
Yes, if you're not if you don't know about the Jerry's Facebook group, because I mean some people are new and pick this up as we're doing it on YouTube. We've got a Jerry's Live Facebook group. Go to groups, type in Jerry's Live to search. You have to answer a question or you will not get in, to make sure that we just don't have bots trolling the place. And then people post stuff all the time. Great community. Just lots of very active learners and artists, and it's just a wonderful place to be. So consider doing that. A lot of times and the girls are putting this on there, so there's a link, but I'll put this in the group tonight, so that there's that link back to it if because the girls probably can't do that during this, can they?
No, I'm getting ready to put it in the group right now.
Ta-da! There you go. Okay, there's little bits back here that you can kind of see through the tree line. Okay, so we got those in there. Grab some of the red. This is a purpley magenta. That's not going to work. So we're going to come down here to this alizarin, where these darker ones are. Put some of that in. I'm just kind of dotting it in so it kind of fades and blooms into it. Okay, anywhere else that's really... I'm going to use a little bit of the cadmium red right there that's next to it for just right there. Okay. Okay, then it kind of fades into some of the greens. It's not this green, obviously. It's that green. So, but it kind of makes a brown, right? Because you start putting that orange with the green and you're going to get a brown. So let's grab some more of this. Bring it over to our orange. Makes kind of that fall color. Green. Go ahead and start. You may have to experiment with the amount and if you get the watercolors transferred to each other, that's fine. This can clean off later. You can clean it with a wet brush or a paper towel or whatever. If you still have a really wet surface like I do, you might want to not get it into your bright colors and just kind of work up to them for this moment. And then go back and finish it because it's going to bleed. And then we can kind of go back in with some darker browns and stuff. Some of this I'm going to let bleed because I think I would like that there. Okay, you can see kind of the shadows between these trees. Kind of the cool thing is if you left it yellow, it's going to have that kind of sunlight effect across the top without really making the viewer understand that's over here. We've got a lot of highlights, so let's kind of leave that for the time being. Wherever you see some darks in between trees, you can put kind of a little dash, and we'll kind of decide what to do with that. I'm going to go into the little bit darker red, darker the cadmium for over here. I'm just taking it on its side and I'm kind of scrubbing it in, trying not to get it too far into that wet stuff. Again, we're just painting a mass. That's all. I want you to just look at the shapes, forget what it is, paint the mass in.
Can you bump it up just a little bit again?
Do I keep pulling it down?
Yeah, I think you do. I don't know how it keeps magically doing it. It's slowly scooting. Or do you just pull back with your hand and...
Probably.
I don't want to zoom out too much.
No, that's fine. There we go. All right. That was the coffee. You know what? I bet this was coming down.
I got it.
That's okay.
Is it on the floor?
It's not salvageable. It is the floor.
I'm just gonna...
We'll get it. Just don't worry.
Friday the 13th?
No, it's just I'm really tired from being up with puppies.
Oh, not just you, it's Facebook too.
Yeah, that's true. I did not have anything to do with that. Nor did the puppies. Because there would have been puppy poo involved had they had something to do with it. Okay. All right. Yes. All right. So now that we're getting over here where it's a little darker, I'm going to incorporate this. This is a raw umber, which is kind of a greeny brown. I'm going to just add a little bit to make it slightly darker. You can see that the color hasn't changed a lot, but the value changes some.
Smells good.
Yeah. It was a really good iced coffee.
Mind me. I can't see now.
I just don't want to get on the camera. So.
No. That's, yeah, and it's everywhere.
Electrical.
It's everywhere. Okay, I'm just adding a little bit more green to that. See how the added green really makes it kind of almost more black? It's hard to see because there's a reflection right there from the light. Apologize for that. Just keep bringing this across there. We need to kind of hurry along. I don't know how we're doing on time. Do you?
I don't know. I have to check it in a second.
That's fine. You're in the middle of something else. It totally was as I'm doing this, it's pulling the
cloth back.
Yep, that's why my coffee's gone.
That makes sense.
Because I have to lean forward.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll staple that down next time.
All right. So I'm gonna kind of leave room for this tree. I'm gonna push it down a little.
You got time for a couple questions while you do that?
Please, yes. Let's do it.
Taylor White asked, on painting watercolor portraits, would you suggest working light to dark or using a medium tone first to define facial features?
Unless you were using gouache, not straight up transparent watercolor. You do not want to start with a medium tone because you are not going to be able to layer lighter colors over it. It's not like pastels where you can go dark to light. You need to go light and then keep continuing going dark. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. Which I know seems weird, and the problem is, especially if you come from doing stuff like oil painting, it seems like that would make sense, but it just doesn't. Watercolor is kind of a tricky medium that's very difficult, if at all, to control. So it's just, you have to kind of, for everybody to be nice and things to work, you kind of have to play by some specific rules, I feel like. And I've done watercolor portraits. I don't like the element of surprise. Therefore, I am not a watercolorist, but I will use watercolors to tint drawings. Portraiture can be very tricky with watercolor, I feel like. All right, so while that's drying, yes.
We got like 15 minutes left.
Okay, good. I'm gonna start with the water while you're getting a question. Oh my God, it's everywhere.
Oh yeah, it's everywhere.
I couldn't see with my reading glasses and like caught just underneath the...
It's all up the wall. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. Lady Gwen asks, what is your favorite watercolor brand to work with? So it depends on what you're doing.
It does depend on what you're doing.
Actually, I had somebody ask about, wrapped into that question, you can probably kill two birds with one stone. Somebody was asking how these compared to like the core watercolors and what you think of those.
Okay, so this is not Lucas's professional line. 1862 is Lucas's professional line, and we've used it on a number of occasions. And the nice thing, if you had 1862 pans and then got this little set, you can change the pans out to come out, which is fantastic. So this set would fit any brand's half pans if they're a traditional size. That being said, I think I've used every single brand. I've not used Core extensively. I just had a little set, one of those little sets when they first came out with them. Since I've not used their whole line, I wasn't wild on the colors they put in the set. I didn't think they were the best they weren't the best selections from the background I come from painting. And I will say, just for consistency for the portraiture I do, I've got the big set of the Sennelier tube colors, but that was more of sometimes you have to do something nice and buy yourself something pretty. And that, I don't like jewelry, so that was it. And it was way cheaper than diamonds, so. But I mean, for this being, but it's not student grade. I hate calling that they call that they're kind of student grade, because it's not. The 1862 is just that little bit, kind of got a little bit more pigment punch, right? When the colors dry, they're just that slight bit more vibrant. They probably have a little bit more of the, of some of the types of ingredients that lend to that shinier transparency that kind of really professional watercolors are going to have. So I think that's the biggest thing. It's not really a difference in the pigments themselves. Does that make sense? And it's just like anything else. Everybody's got their own particular likes and dislikes. And there's some brands in all mediums that I'm like, I have to use that color for that medium because they just do the color a certain way. So it's experiment. If you know there's a color, especially, well, see, with watercolors last forever. So, but I always tell people in oils and acrylics, if there's a color you really like that you use a lot of, a good way to test that brand is to buy some of that color, because that's a good way to see what are the performance characteristics that are a little different. All right, I'm using some of this color real quick before I go on with that. I put a little bit more of the ultramarine in it for the water here. And we're going to come across here with that big brush. But it's a good way to try, different, and do them with like a series 1 or 2, because then you're not breaking the bank. If you hate the color, it's irrelevant. You just have extra of a color, or you can donate it to somebody or give it to a friend, or what have you. And then you can just play with it alongside the brand that you're used to. See what the differences are. See what you like, what you dislike. Okay, now with this, I'm going to keep moving this across this way so that if there are lines, it's going in a way that's kind of keeping that form of the landscape for the perspective, just kind of like within there. Because if you bring stuff down, like this is like this. If you bring stuff down like that, if that water line came down like that, that means that that view is you're looking up over it. It's a perspective thing. There's still perspective in landscape, which people tend to forget. So pay attention to the width of your shapes from top to bottom, because that's going to help the viewer know where they are in that picture and where they're kind of looking at the view from. Okay, so I'm just pulling this kind of along. I decided I didn't want all those little tufts of junk in there. So I'm just pulling that along. What, tufts of junk? It's a technical term. You heard it here first. Okay, and since there's not a lot of water in this, I'm painting this back in and around the edges of the grass real quick. You can actually get a really fine line on that if it's not super heavy with liquid. Okay. All right. So there's a little bit of sky. And here you've got a lot more kind of those clouds reflecting down. So, so I'm going to take that and make, I don't want to use that as purpley because this is a lot more kind of purpley here. I'm going to use the well on the side. I'm going to pick that medium color and I'm just going to make just a tint, just not a tint, just a very little bit of wash. And I'm going to kind of pull it in through here. I'm going to just put it over those. I'm like patting it over it, okay? I'm not like really putting it on there. I'm not trying to lift any of that. I'm just kind of patting it over it to fill in where that cloud area is going to be. Because we just want kind of that look of the clouds in just enough color so that it makes sense that it's not just white, but we don't want it to be okay. All right. And it's hard for you guys to see that. Hopefully the monitor's just, because it's kind of a bluish gray. All right, so we're going to go back into this that's just very orange and looks weird. And we're going to grab, I think we're just going to use this brush. This brush is easy to add a lot of area very quickly. So that was the Indian yellow that we used. We're going to add just a tiny bit of that cadmium orange red into it. A little bit more. We have to be real careful because we're right on the verge of that blue. And we don't want to leave a little bit of a highlight at the top where that came through, okay? So it kind of makes a light in the back. Which will kind of help push distance with this. Needs more of that even. There we go. Now with watercolor, it seems really bright. It never dries this bright. It always dulls that little tiny bit when the paper completely dries. So push it all the way down. There's a little bit that's kind of yellower there. I'm going to leave just a touch. And then some of this gets redder and browner in here. We'll put some of that in just a minute. All right. grab a little bit of that deeper red and put it into there. If you've got a paper towel, like I do on the floor, blot a little bit. Okay, I'm pulling a little bit across there, like there's some of that there. You don't have to dump your coffee to do that either. I highly recommend not doing that.
Monica had a question about something you were talking about just a second ago.
Sure.
I was cleaning up coffee, so I missed it. She said, how do you go about tinting the drawings with watercolors? This intrigues her, but she's not sure.
Oh, what I said about tinting it? I do them with a technical pen, and then I just put the color on. So it's like, I'll put some in the group tonight.
Okay.
Of ones that I've done. I know that I think I've got some of them on my, I think they're on my Amy Gardner Dean page.
Grumpy Owl's on there somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Grumpy Owl's on the old set, if you ever watched the old set. Saw the old set, Grumpy Owl's on there. Okay, with this I'm just adding some red further back, okay? See how that kind of being darker back here kind of pushes that back? I don't want that to be that dark. That's too red for right there. So we're going to kind of smooth it. Pull it along. Smooth it out. Okay, over here there's a little bit, I'm going to add a little bit of this indigo in. Oh, that makes a pretty purple brown. Look at that. Okay. Ooh, that's very nice. We're going to put some of that in up in here. That's just that indigo mixed in with that red we were just using to kind of make some of that darkness fall away in there. Add some of that down here. See how that little bit really pushes that back? We need some in those trees back there just to, it doesn't have to be the same, just, I'm gonna just darken them just because that looks weird and I don't feel like we're gonna have time to finish them, so I'm just trying to stabilize that and push that back. Get a little bit more of that indigo, the red. Oh, that got away. Well, no, that looks all right. It's hard to tell when it's down. So anywhere you want that darkness to be, kind of to push things back. What it is those shadows under the trees, okay? So it doesn't have to be, it can be just kind of makes those shapes that are that negative space in these areas. Ooh, that's pretty. It's made like a big fan on the thing. All right, and then we've got some of that color down here as well. See how the kind of shadows in this grass. This is where we're going to put that little bit of it along the shoreline in the green. Everything's kind of a little bit wet still, so it's going to kind of blend. See, some of that little bit of touches really helps add the perspective. It's not the same as the picture, but you can see that it adds a lot of perspective to it. All right, so in here, this is really light. Obviously, that's really dark. I'm gonna take some green, put it in with that. Just kind of pull it down. At the base of some of those weeds, you've got some of those darker colors in the reflections on the water. Just kind of dab it in. So then you can't tell, is it the water? Is it the bottom of the weeds? Reflections can be these weird little things that you don't have to define them. They don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to explain them. It just needs to kind of look soft, I guess, is probably the easiest way to put it. This guy out here's got some other stuff going on, so we're going to ignore that for just a minute. I guess we need to pull some of the water in here. The water is so gross. I don't even know if it's going to make the blue at this point. Like, how much time do we have left? We're probably getting close to...
We're just about out of time, so
Okay.
just a few more minutes.
We'll just fudge it.
You sure you don't want some more water? I can get some right here.
Now, I'm going to go with, let's see.
An aqua mist.
The Prussian blue for down here. Aqua mist. All right, this might be okay. Now remember how I said we were just dabbing? This is kind of our still water, right? That you don't see all the wrinkles and all that with. And we're gonna have to kind of bring some of that reflection back in here in a minute. Now the beauty in this is just playing around with it. Okay, guys? A, not a watercolorist. I'm absolutely not a watercolorist. And B, I'm not a landscape artist either. So this isn't, it's just trying it. It's really honest to God, just getting out there, trying it, having a little go at playing with the colors. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be right or wrong. Just get in there and try it out. I'm going back in just to kind of pull it in between the grass a little. If it comes into it, if it goes overlaps it, that's fine. It's not. In fact, you know what? I kind of like that. Just going to overlap it. Makes a nice shadow. And this would definitely be where I might want to play with a little gouache to get, if I wanted to pull the yellow out of this, then that would be nice and kind of shadowed and modeled behind it. Okay, so we could do like a little bit of this cast here. I'm gonna get the little 1/4 inch aquarelle out, and I'm gonna take a little bit of that green and orange. idea if this is going to work or not. This is where this needs a little bit of foundation for that little guy. Pulling out a little bit of some of the yellow. Pulling out a little bit of some of the orange. And you could go in and make this a little more jagged, put some little kind of lines across it in different places a little darker to show that kind of wind on that water. But this is just a quick impression of just a landscape, waterscape, fall colors. People probably.
One more question.
Yeah.
I got a couple more actually, but Carol would like to know how you pull the yellow back out of it.
How would I pull the yellow back out of it? To put in like in here?
I think so.
Okay, if she's talking about adding this stuff back on, the little grass and things like that, what you do is use watercolor gouache. So that would be separate from this set. Watercolor gouache, always make sure when you buy gouache, you check, is it acrylic? Is it watercolor? Watercolor and acrylic gouache could still be used over this, but watercolor gouache will pick up. So if you want to use acrylic, that's great. Wait till this is all done and it's all set, because once you start painting acrylic over it, you can't pick that back up. You could pick up watercolor gouache. Gouache means opaque. So it's just an opaque watercolor. It's pigments with inert pigments, which are like silicas that provide an opacifier to it, and some titanium dioxide, okay? So you can actually go back over this with another color where this is more of a transparency. You can go back over it with something brighter. You know, like how people will be doing something and they'll go back and add white to it, and then it's like, well, how did you just add white to a watercolor? You messed up, right? It's because they're using a gouache to go over it. So if I wanted to go back into that and do all those little individual grass hairs and pop up some of these little brighter areas, you know, make them whiter, creamier, whatever you wanted to do, wanted to go back in and control the clouds a little more, you could always go back over it with gouache. That's when you're starting to get back into, though, you're not just doing an impression and you're not just trying to kind of paint to draw with the paint. Train yourself just to kind of see the situation and put something down. That's when you're doing like just more of an artwork where you're trying to make it look just like it, right? And which is great. And there's times, most of the time you want to do that, but it helps with your speed with painting and things like that, and not to be frustrated with making kind of decisions. Is it going to work? Is it not? If you haven't experimented and played with it some, which is what this kind of thing is doing for you. Do we have any other questions? Okay. And again, if you're on Facebook and now you're watching this after the fact, we apologize. We have no idea what is going on with it. With their new upgrades, things just seem crazy. And I've even noticed that just in personal Facebook stuff. So we're going to get to the bottom of it. Katie, the entire episode, was over there working her little hiney off, trying to get it to still bring Facebook in to no avail. So I promise you we will get that taken care of. And we'll be with you guys live again next week. But we thank you guys for hanging in there and for painting with us. Hope you painted with us. Again, if you post this in the Jerry's Live Facebook group, do the hashtag JL170. And then that will be where people can pull up that hashtag and find all the cool stuff. So, the contest winners, yes, we have that. And also, virtual AOC up and running. You can sign up for classes now. It's all there at the ready. I'm not even sure how many classes they're doing, but there's lots. And there's something every day from Monday through Saturday. So
there's a lot.
There's a lot. And only 30 students per class, which, I mean, with virtual, they can do 200 students if they wanted, but they're trying to keep it small so so the instructors can give some feedback and work with you guys and stuff. So, so again, www.artofthecarolinas.com. See, I wore the shirt, Katie. There was a method to the madness. And you can see that. So, all right. So the contest winners, it was under the big top. So, and there was a lot of curious things that I wasn't sure how they related to big tops, but that's okay. Again, and a lot of people I think submit that aren't on the show, that don't watch the show, lots of work that looked really awesome, and then you enlarged it and it was so fuzzy you couldn't see it. So pay particular attention to that. And Katie said that maybe if you're using like way too giant of a file, it's reducing it on its own. So you may want to, if you have problems, if you upload it and it doesn't look right, you may want to try it at a little smaller file. So, all right. So third place for a Jerry's Artarama gift card, Melody Greenleaf from Sandy, Utah. That is a beautiful portrait of a clown. There's watercolor. We just talked about watercolor portraits, and bam, there you go. I think that's fantastic. So, very nice. That's third place. Second place is Helen Green of Austin, Texas. That is just fantastic. That epitomizes the just whole kind of fair circus excitement and things and kids and spectacle and you do, yeah, like when you first walk in and there's all the lights at night. Yeah, this is great. Everybody's looking up. And I love that this is a dog-friendly circus because, you know, that's how I roll. So that's Helen Green. All right. And this, this may be one of my, and it doesn't translate as well printed out. This may be one of my favorite artworks that we've seen. And we've seen some really good ones. The Cars ones, those were great. But look at this. This is from Manuel Marrero of Miami Beach, Florida. She is the circus tent, and there's like little things going on down here. Look on the contest page to see this because it's just the color and the vibrancy. There's somebody juggling up here. Her face is a carousel. This is just fantastic. Love it, love it. I would like to know if it was watercolors or whatever. So if he would comment on that on the post when you post the winners, that would be fantastic. So e-gift cards for the three of them. What is the contest next week, Katie?
There isn't. That's it.
What?
That's it.
Done. Okay.
No.
All right. Well, that was anticlimactic. I'm sorry that I built that up because I was expecting another one.
No.
Now I'm kind of not sure what to do. Those are fun to look at. Okay. Well, next week we are going to be doing a 2-part series. First part next week, the second part the week after that. We have talked about looking at the pigments in your paint. We've talked about transparencies, opacities. We've talked about hot and cool, warm and cool colors for mixing. This next week, we're going to do 3 studies together. You want to look at those. That's JL. The products are the same for both episodes, JL 171 and JL 172. If you don't have those products and want to play along, look at the paints that you've got at home for those colors where you've got the cool and warm primaries of each, because we're going to be tweaking temperatures and kind of painting along together so you guys get used to actually seeing it while you're working. Not just, well, I'm doing it and then not remembering it when we go back. We're making you do it too. So that's what we're doing next week with oils, but you can work with acrylics if you want. It'll be the same, should be the same colors really when it boils down to it. But get yourself some surfaces, get yourself your paints and your brushes, and let's meet up here next week and let's do this. All right, you guys stay safe, take care, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.